welcome to the Ladies of Comicazi, LadiesCon, and the Distance Collaboration and Creative Isolation panel with Ming Doyle and Tana Ford. My name is Elise. I am one of the Ladies of Comicazi. I will be moderating this panel today. First, we have a few administrative details. Clearly, you found your way to the programming part of LadiesCon, but I also want to put in an extra plug for the vendor part of LadiesCon. Cons going virtual has hit our vendors particularly hard. It's much harder to sell online than it is in person, so we hope that you'll take a chance to take a look at our vendor page. Many of them have con specials to entice you, as well as beautiful and creative work. For questions for this panel, you can put your questions in the chat. You will see it says questions here. You can go on and put them in, and those will be filtered to me to ask during the panel. Also, if you are interested in any of the works from Ming or Tana, please email steve@Comicazi. Comicazi can help you get all of their books. They do mail order and they do delivery if you happen to be local. So with that, I am going to introduce both Ming and Tana. So Ming Doyle is a Boston local. She's worked on such titles as The Kitchen, now a major motion picture, Constantine, DC's Anatomy of a Metahuman, and The Banks, which is also going to be becoming a major motion picture. She's also a member of the LadiesCon 5-Timers Club.
Yeah, yes. I'm very sad I didn't get the bomber jacket this year. But
I know. Next, we'll get it to you retroactively.
Thank you.
And Tana Ford, or should I say 2020 Eisner and Hugo Award-winning artist Tana Ford, has done art for LaGuardia, Gem and the Holograms, Gwenpool, and of course, Marvel's Silk. This is Tana's second LadiesCon appearance, and we are so happy to have you with us again.
Yay! If not a bomber jacket, what do I do? Get like a little, I don't know, like a pocket square?
I know, like a patch or something. We'll have to come up with something.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Pin.
Big 5 on the back.
Yes.
I like it.
Well, let's start at the beginning of talking about creative collaborations. And so could you talk a little bit about how do collaborations even come to be? Do you get to pick? Are you just assigned? Is it both? Sort of talk a little bit about how these matches are made.
Well, I mean, this is such
Ming, go ahead, start.
I'll just start. It's such a wide-ranging question, and every project is, in my experience, I shan't speak for Tana, but it's incredibly different. And you know, in the vast majority of cases where I've worked as an artist, it's just been either a writer or the publisher approaching me via email, never in person, and asking if I would be interested and available. I don't know if that's your experience as well, Tana, but it's all digital.
Yeah, it's always been. I think, you know, all of the times that I've been approached has been via email, and I've had editors early in my career that sort of cold called me, and it would make my day. Yeah. And you know, so I think the in-person stuff would be networking and doing things at shows where you can meet people face to face. But like, in my view, business doesn't get done there. You just see, you know, you just sort of make connections. But yeah, it's been email. People just reach out, email, or you get, you know, you have a good working relationship with a writer, or there's a creative team that you like, somebody that you want to work with, that, you know, you could workshop ideas together. And so it's either that as an artist, you get attached to a project because they're like, oh, this story fits this, you know, this artist's way of working, or you're like, hey, we work really well together, let's make a thing. Is another way it could do, but I don't know, there are a lot of ways.
It's kind of a sweet intersection of online self-aggrandizement and advertising, finally bearing fruit and drawing those sweet bees to your honey, or just like the nepotism of knowing people.
I would say friendship, the friendship of knowing people.
Friendship. Not everything has to be a transactional relationship. You're right.
And I think, you know, one of the joys of working on comics at times has been the ability to collaborate with people I genuinely care about. A lot of people right now during the COVID times are sharing real horror stories about, you know, not getting along with coworkers and having really toxic work environments. And while that certainly can be true in comics, it has been my experience that the people that I am attached to are people I work with really well. And so I've been fortunate in that way.
Living the dream.
Yeah. That sounds so nice.
Yeah.
So it sounds like in some cases you already have a relationship, but once you are sort of, okay, now that bee and honey match has been made and you're going to start to work together, particularly if it's someone where you don't already have a relationship. How do you start to build a relationship? Are there specific questions or methods?
It's just
Especially
so
when
awkward.
It's distance.
It's so awkward. Like anything in life, it's so awkward. I'm always terrified whenever I throw the first pieces of concept art out there or something like that, or the pitch. I'm just like, please, do you like this at all? Like,
that is a mood, man.
What I have brought for you.
Yes.
It takes a long time to feel out another person in any kind of a relationship, and you know, I would say quadruple that for email. Like my coworkers on the Kitchen graphic novel, which I did like 5 or 6 years ago now at Vertigo. I really dearly love them all now, but I would say that we didn't like start talking to each other in like a friendly, chummy way until after the whole series had been like done, dusted, and collected.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not always like that. Like sometimes I'm working with people where it's just like a laugh and a half from the start, but other times, you know, it's just so, particularly I feel like when I'm doing like, I hesitate to call something like the Kitchen IP, but it was with Vertigo, which is under the DC umbrella and everything.
Yeah.
So when I'm working for like, you know, more, this is comics publishers, I feel a little bit more like, oh, I've got to button up the tie and make sure that everything's very presentable. So, but other times, yeah, I've worked with people and it's just been like, you want to do something? And I'm like, no, never, here it is.
We have a very different way of working, Ming.
Oh.
I think I'm super chatty, and I enjoy email communication because it like bypasses my like the anxieties that I can have in like in-person communication that I stumble over sometimes. It's a little.
You're anxious in person?
Sometimes, yeah. I
don't get that.
I mask it a lot. This is a lot of work. I've done a lot of work here. But so in email, I know that I have the time and space to say what I need to say, to present my work in a way that will make it make the most sense. And if I have questions, you know, I assume the people that I communicate with the most are the writer, right? Like, I'll also be communicating with my colorist. I don't do my own color when it is mainstream comics. So the colorist and I also need to communicate if there's stuff that like I have in mind, or I need certain effects, or I just want them to go crazy and like, you know, you have my permission to wash out any of my line work or do whatever you like. There's a little bit of creative conversation with the colorist, but mostly my communication is with the writer, because my responsibility is to translate their vision into reality. And the faster I can get to like have them open their mind to me, the more seamless our transition will be. So I encourage my writers, and I've been very lucky that they send a lot of reference. They send, you know, they'll send me specific notes. One of my favorite things is notes directly, like little notes to me in the script, you know, like Robbie Thompson, when we were working on Silk, would do like a fight scene and it's a double page spread, and, you know, Silk punches and Black Cat kicks, and then his note is like, but really, Tana, just do whatever you want, make it look awesome. That's what I want in a script, right? Like, thank you. Or, you know, there have been other moments where the writer is going for something cinematic, and you could accomplish this kind of a transition in film really well, but for me to draw it two-dimensionally is going to be really hard, and to do what you have in mind, there has to be a different way to make that work two-dimensionally. And so I feel comfortable saying things to the writer, like, I think this is what you're going for. Here are some ideas. This, you know, like, work with me on this. Can you tell me more about, you know, what you're envisioning, or this is what I'm envisioning. And I feel like I'm better at communicating over email. So it works for me that way.
That is awesome. You have to be one of the few artists, writers, creators of any kind I've ever heard of that says, I prefer email. I love to write emails in a timely manner.
I know, but that's just how I'm designed. I also
No, it's
have
really, yeah.
in my,
I see.
I've also come to love phone conversations. So I don't know, what are your opinions on, do you talk to your editors on the phone?
Yes, I do. I would say that I probably talk with writers and colorists, like, you know, more on the creative end, people more on the phone but I've talked with them all on the phone, baby. I've talked with them all.
Is that your preferred method of communication then? Would be to just call someone up?
Oh, geez, I don't know, actually. Now you're having me think about my social anxieties and hang-ups.
You know, I was going to bring up the phone, but like it gave me anxiety to think about phone calls. And I was like, would you guys do phone calls?
Yeah, I used to have anxiety about it, but, and you know, to be clear, I am not always wanting to write things down in email, but in the preliminary stages when it's important that we are clearly communicating, I find it helpful to have emails that I can refer back to about ideas and that I can clearly get across, you know, what it is that I need to get across. And then after that, I think, you know, talking is faster. And so I've come late in my life to really enjoying phone calls in a way that I did not used to.
Yeah, that is, well, especially in this day and age. It's just so nice to hear another human voice. I'm really proud of us for stringing together sentences right now.
I know. Oh, I feel like I've said that in all of my like friendship phone calls, because that's the thing I'm doing now, because I can't hang out with my friends in real life really. And I'm like, oh, it's so nice to hear a human voice. It's so nice to hear you. We're living through a weird time, you guys.
It's a really weird time, but keeping it light and airy.
Yes.
Holding it together.
And Tana, you kind of touched on this, and so we can kind of bring it back to the creative vision. So how do you mix your style with the vision that they have? Like, do you send samples, or do you talk about a time period? I know, Ming, a lot of your work on the kitchen and the banks is very sort of specific style-wise in terms of like clothes, and the fashion is just amazing. Are those some of the things that you'll use to kind of help like flesh out the vision?
Yeah, absolutely. Like for something like, actually, I would say that pretty much any of my comics that haven't been big two necessarily have all the preliminary and the preparation work has all been just character sketches and fashion sketches and kind of envisioning them in situ, however they would be. I tend to do a lot more kind of concept work, I guess, with that stuff, just because and that's how I as an artist get into a story and access it better. I mean, life is a learning journey, and I am ever learning how to love to draw backgrounds more. But the way I access stories is through characters, so that's what I like to explore the most.
Oh, I love that so much. How much do you ever, one of my favorite parts of comics is the back matter. In the stories that I make, in the ones that I read, I like reading about an artist's process, and I like seeing process pictures and concept sketches. Yes. Yeah. Do you include stuff like that in your finished work? How much of it doesn't get published? How much of it is never seen?
I would say most of it is never seen. I mean, I agree with you, Tana. I love that. Whenever I pick up a book and it's got like 20 pages in the back, they're like, these are the sketches. These are all of the weird iterations that things went through. Just like,
I love seeing that. Yes, I love seing that. Oh.
Yeah, I do too. But I feel like publishers have kind of wised up to the fact that people love seeing that kind of unfinished back matter stuff, because I'm getting more requests now. It used to be that I would just draw them like on the back of, you know, notebook paper or receipts or things, but now I'm, in a way, when I'm starting to work on a book, I'm like, well, I better just fire up Photoshop and sketch in here because in 300 DPI, because somebody's gonna want it someday.
Yep. Yeah, and now I'm thinking about how I enter a story, how I get into the universe, and it begins always with sketching. And I think one of the things that gets lost in mainstream, the deadlines for mainstream comics are so oppressive. They are so deadly. Like, and you have to do the best work you can do in the tightest frame possible, and you need to do it because nobody else can do their job until you do your job, right? Like, a lot of people, you're a cog in the machine, and the letterer is depending on you, the colorist is depending on you, all of the fans, like, there's just the production machine. And so you have to do the best work possible within these constraints. And I find that really difficult. It's a challenge I can rise to, but it can be very daunting. And a way that something that I've been enjoying lately, now that I have a little room to breathe, is like drawing for fun again, letting myself enjoy the process of creating and doodling. I doodle all the time. I draw on bar napkins when I used to go out in public, and but sketching is so essential, and I lost it for a long time because I was just like meeting the deadline, and I was drawing all the time, but it became kind of joyless. And I love what I do, but now that I can do things, that allow my art to sort of breathe a bit, oh man, I am loving it. The lost art of sketching. Oh. Anyway.
We heard the same, last night, Mildred Lewis did a panel for us where she talked about where she was going to, she decided she was not going to freelance anymore, and she's open, doing her own creative studio. And I think that was a big piece of it, was to try to get control, like creative control back in her life, and bring a little bit more joy.
Yes. And, not to sound ungrateful, I think that what I do is wonderful. I have met wonderful people through it. I love this corner of the comic book community that I thrive in, and that, I get to hang out with Ming Doyle. We get to do stuff at Comicazi. This is a cool thing. This is wonderful. But, it is a grind as well. And so, it is nice to be able to get away from that for a minute and breathe.
Yes. I agree.
So so not to sort of bring up a harder thing that you might encounter, but what happens when you don't see eye to eye with your creative partner? How do you navigate those types of, especially where you're not able to meet in person and always have a face-to-face discussion? So how do you navigate those creative differences?
I feel like a lot just happened on your face, Ming.
I went through a journey.
Yes, I felt like I was going on that journey too.
I was just going to say, like, breathing exercises and blood pressure medication, which I'm not on yet, but I'm sure with the way that I repress things, and talk to me in 1 or 2 decades.
Oh, no.
No, I mean, yeah, my face went through that journey just because a lot of times it can be so frustrating, because it's not necessarily that I've never seen eye to eye with a creative team or even my direct editor. It can just be that sometimes, you're working on a project, and sometimes the editor's editor, or, the even higher up publishers, or just, corporate, or even like the publishing schedule, and the book manufacturers that things can just coalesce and align to make a good experience frustrating and negative for everybody. And it's not necessarily through I don't think I've ever worked with someone where I've been like, wow, this is a terrible project because they're a bad person. Or like because they just have the wrong idea and the wrong take. Like, I've actually never been on a project where I've really bristled at having to create something for it. It is stressful. It's all those things that you were talking about, Tana, like the being a cog in the machine. All of that can kind of make a pressure cooker. I was actually thinking when you were talking about that sometimes making comics can feel like a very long, drawn out, unedited, torturous episode of like Chopped or, you know, like, you know,
Yeah.
Hell's Kitchen or something. It's like, you have to make something in this amount of time. It has to be palatable. Everyone has to work out together.
Yep.
Somebody's going to die at the end. You know?
And sometimes all you have to work with is like a pig's head, and you have to make a dinner out of some, like, it's just, and it is really, I don't know, after a while, it just becomes, I don't know. Really,
I would say
really
it's more
difficult.
often scheduling issues that have made me hate a project more than
I will agree.
collaborators.
I will agree 100%. There was the worst experiences I have had in comics are absolutely about the timeline and the either unwillingness or inability to move a deadline, even though people before you were the artist, I'm the artist. And so a lot of things can conspire to throw a deadline off track. But I am the person that needs the most time with the material, right? Like I can only draw so fast. And even at my fastest, right? Like you can't shave a week off my schedule, 2 weeks off my schedule. You can't give me a script that's 2 weeks late and expect me to deliver it on the same deadline. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And, you know, and early in my career, I was really, you know, I was being hit with stuff like that. And it, like, I would be crying at my desk after working for, you know, 16 hours and my hand hurts. And I'm like, I can't do this. I physically cannot draw any more than I am doing. And so, you know, I think my projects would have been better if there had been flexibility on the deadline end. I'm thinking of one in particular that was being digitally published. I understand that you have to deliver physical books to a bookstore, but if your publishing deadline is digital, then I think maybe you extend the deadline for the appropriate amount of time and then release it digitally. Like there isn't, anyway. And so I agree with Ming, the only bad experiences I have are not with people. My collaborators are great. My editors are hardworking. It is, I think, perhaps the corporate overlords who maybe aren't focused on the content, more the, I don't know, the money exchanged, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, go Mildred.
Yes.
So the ever-present like rolling of the industry, which actually brings me to a question I had, but also a question that's come up in the chat is, so the industry was rolling and then we hit a pandemic. And so what changes has COVID brought both to your work, to the industry, good and bad? You know, I think there are some things that maybe have come up that people are like, you know what, I think I might keep this in my life even after COVID. So are there things that, even though brought up by a difficult thing, ended up being maybe good changes?
I have always worked from home.
Yeah.
So I feel like there have been a lot of the conversation that I've heard from friends are that they're trying to achieve this like work-life balance and work at home. And all of the freelancers I know already had that kind of setup in their life. And so I don't know what, Ming, have you got?
No, I mean, yeah, I would say that the day-to-day has not changed appreciably, actually, because the sad truth of the matter was that I spent most of my time at home working or taking care of my kid. You know, I didn't live a very free range lifestyle, but I will say that the loss of even small moments of respite, you know, like the loss of the ability to go to a cafe and work there for a couple of hours and pretend like I had an office job, has hit me a lot, very hard. And I won't say harder than I expected, because those used to be the reasons that I would, oh wow, we're getting deep, it's therapy now. Those used to be the reasons that I would look forward to, you know, getting up and leaving the house, and I'd be like, I'm doing it, I'm participating in a larger society. So I do have a lot of empathy for people who work in traditional office setups, saying like, oh, I'm, you know, some people don't love their jobs, but they just say, oh, I miss it, you know, like I miss passing people in the hallway or just hearing other people exist. So that's the minutia of it. I mean, it's just much more of a mental grind. And even in the before times when things were better, or it was easier to focus in on yourself and think that things were better in a larger format, it was just it was still the isolation of being self-employed and work from home could be very tough to grapple with mentally. So now all of that is just incredibly compounded. And then there's also all of the terrible news that we're being inundated with nonstop. There was terrible news. There's been terrible news for years now, decades really. But it seems like a lot. I don't know. Call me out if I'm wrong on that. It seems like a lot right now.
A lot is hitting right now. A lot. The world is on fire right now.
Know,
like literally,
exactly.
We can't not pay attention to how bad it is right now.
It feels bad. So I think that, to bring it back down from the larger, terrible geopolitical, socioeconomic, existential scope, and bring it back down to comics, I would say that COVID has kind of reaffirmed something that I was already coming to realize in myself, which was that, and again, this goes back to deadlines and everything, which is that I want to invest in myself more, and my, if not happiness, just overall contentment factor with my career, because it's easy to say that working in the comics or the arts is a dream career, and in a lot of ways it is, but it has all the same pitfalls as any other job for sure, and burnout is real and all of that, and I'm just feeling like life is too uncertain and fraught. I don't want to just say yes to things just because they're a gig anymore. I want to be able to give myself the time not to, I'm getting up in age too. I don't want to wreck my body. I'm hoping to live another few more decades at least. So I want to, roll in towards the end and be like, Amy Chu was posting some amazing photos the other day. She took beer to go see Ramona Brennan, and she's 94 and is still a working artist. Truly amazing. Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can find the link. I don't know if there's a text thing that I can drop here, but she's 94 and she just finished a cover for DC. And I'm like, should I live to even experience that decade of my life, I would like to not be a complete hollow shell. So COVID has made me just realize I want to survive and thrive.
Yeah. And something I think about a lot is that we only have, as a creative, I only have so much time on the world, in the earth, and I make things, right? That's what I do, is I make things. You brought it to an existential place, so I'm just going to pick up that ball and run with it.
I'm so sorry. I always do.
Do it.
And I love this idea that, that I will, in some form or another, be making things, be creating things, be sharing stories, expressing, my particular brand of the human, I don't know, tapestry, the story, for as long as I can. And the idea that I could still be creating into my 90s is encouraging to me. I like that a lot.
I don't know how to drop a link, but this is Ramona.
Oh my goodness.
With their masks.
I love it.
Is it that wonderful?
You guys should all follow Amy Chu, and then you can also see that picture.
At Amy Chu, it's easy. Goodness. Yeah.
It
gave me, that made me have a
that.
positive vision of the future for once.
I love that for once. Oh, Ming. And so being part of the corporate machine, I have very much enjoyed the work. I am fortunate that I've enjoyed the work that I have done to this point in my career. I have done a mix of creator-owned stuff and mainstream stuff, and I give back when I can, and and I try to make work that is meaningful both to me, and I think I often think about a younger version of me, what I needed and didn't get when I was young, and I let that be kind of my guiding light for the projects that I want to take on and the things that I want to do. That's what I'm really
trying to tap into there.
Yeah.
I feel like I spent some years in the industry. I busted onto the industry fresh out of art school with all sorts of weird ideas and visual fetishes that I was working out. And, that was such a raw, unfiltered, pure version of me. And I feel like I spent some years trying to tame down my style in a lot of ways, just because I needed to get jobs, you know, and for whatever reason, the way I was expressing myself before wasn't it for publishers or editors. And I do want to tap back into like that younger version that just drew what I wanted and didn't worry so much about conforming to a larger style. And I think that now is actually time for that with distance working and the isolation and everything. Like comics have already been trending in a huge way towards self-publishing and indie. And, you know, anyone with like $10 can be like, I have an imprint now. And imprint their items and publish it online, you know? And that's wonderful. You know, I want to be part of that. Like I think about my younger self and how much I was yearning for a community that is honestly really just like what we have now. And now I'm just like, can I come in?
You're already in, man. You're already in.
Yeah. I love it. So in a lot of time, it's a weird situation where in a lot of times these are the worst of times, but also like really there's a lot of beauty and a lot of good things happening, and in a lot of ways better than we've ever been.
Yeah, I have experienced a kind of hunkering down and a solidarity. There is a lot of hate and awful things in the world, but as a sort of response to that, there seems to be a coalescing of people and allies and a lot of creatives and a kind of self-outing that we all care about being compassionate, about being, you know, citizens of the world, of uplifting each other.
Radical empathy.
Yes, man. And so I was like, I didn't know everyone was a hippy dippy, but like, I love it.
Not everybody is.
I know.
But you know what? I don't feel bad about being hippy dippy. So it's fine.
And I don't know. And so like the community that gets created here, the one, you know, the work that I enjoy and that I've been consuming in quarantine, the stuff that I've been creating in quarantine has this focus on, you know, meaningful work. I feel like I am at a stage in my career where, you know, to a certain extent, I've paid my dues. I've done work I'm very proud of. And throughout the time, I have done a lot for, you know, queer representation in comics and gay representation in comics and all of the things that I value. I've been able to express those values in a large arena. And now I'm thinking about what is the next step for me? How do I, you know, take this stuff that I have built and the stuff that I do and amplify that? How do I use all these gifts, this stuff, and make this other thing that I would have loved as a kid? And so that's
legacy.
Where my focus is going. Yeah.
Yes.
What is a legacy?
There's so much time for self-reflection now. We could go on and on.
So steer the conversation.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I feel like that's kind of a theme that we've been hearing over these past couple of days with creators, and it's really nice to hear. I just want to remind everyone, we have maybe about 10 minutes left, so if you have any questions,
that was fast.
Make sure you put them in. I know it goes fast.
Fast.
Make sure you put them in the chat. In the meantime, I think let's talk a little bit more about maybe some of the tips and tricks since you've kind of been living this home work.
We've been living quarantine lifestyle for years now.
You've been living it longer than some of us.
Yes.
So what are some tips and tricks you have for people? How do you maintain a work-life balance? And how do you, and other ways to, I know.
How do you?
I'm ready to take notes. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, please. I want to learn. I don't know. I can't really answer that because, I had a kid in 2018, which feels like just yesterday, but was two and a half years now. And just when I thought like I was hitting a stride with life on my own, then that happened. And it's rough. I would say as much as possible, have some sort of a routine. You don't have to be very strict about it. You don't need to be an influencer guru about it. You don't need to wake up at 6 a.m. with the sun and, you know, unleash your chakras and all of that. But, you know, try to go to sleep within a general area. Oh my God, as I'm getting older too, and now that I'm a mom, please don't eat like garbage. I know it's bad.
Great advice.
I know it's bad times right here, right now, but like have a fruit or a vegetable. just do some sort of a movement. Because as this goes on, as our world becomes smaller, as we stay in ever shrinking spaces longer, it can be so easy to get some Blade Runner accelerated decrepitude going on. So just please take care of yourselves, my darlings.
That's good. That's great advice. That is great advice. My partner works in a hospital. She is a hospital. She manages a clinic in a VA hospital in Florida. And it is a nightmare down here. And so my work-life balance has changed, not because of my schedule, but because of the additional pressure and sort of suffering that is happening in my partner's life and in her reality, and how scary that makes it for us. We live in Florida, and it can be tricky down here. And so I've gotten used to saying, you should wear a mask because I'm more dangerous to you than you are to me, right? And I find that helps, but achieving a work-life balance. So for me, the thing that had been normal then got upended for reasons beyond, what I could control. And I find that, we cook healthy. I've become quite a good chef because we eat inside all the time. And so we've got, our vegetables get delivered, and we eat healthy. We did order a 6-pound bag of Black Forest gummy bears, and I highly recommend it, you guys. It's so good.
Oh man, my husband does that on the regular.
Oh, they're so good.
I mean, he doesn't have a ton of vices, but I did walk in on him the other day, and he had 4 bags of artisanal licorices from Germany that had been delivered in one package, and he had opened all of them at the same time.
I did not know artisanal licorices was a thing.
Oh yes it is.
I'm interested.
Oh,
so
phenomenal.
Take care of yourself, but also treat yourself.
Yeah, find that balance, man. And work. I think I have found that my productivity has been a roller coaster. What used to be, I'm a pretty predictable person. I work well within parameters, and I had my routine, and now I'm finding that there's an emotional component to how I create more than there ever has been. And so some days are just awful. And I feel like on those days, you do the best that you can, conserve your energy. I find,
Drink
cooking
water.
good meals happens, drink water. I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but drink some water.
Okay,
take care of each
I feel
other.
like we need to open this up to 1 or 2 questions. You and I could just go on forever and have a lifestyle situation blog going.
Oh, gummy bears versus artisanal licorice. I like it.
They're all good.
But these things, self-care is important, and finding that balance is critical. We are approaching time, so if there's any other questions, you can put them in the chat. Otherwise, I think I'll ask you both if you have anything you want to plug and talk about before we close it out.
Support your libraries. Support Comicazi. If you want to order my Hugo and Eisner Award-winning book, LaGuardia, nice. You can do that at the place. There'll be a link down below. No, I don't know if there will be.
You can go to comicazi.com.
Yes. Hit the bell, like and subscribe.
Yeah, I would also say please support your local booksellers, independent booksellers, your local comic shop. Comicazi, particularly if you're in the greater Boston area. I just we were out on our walk yesterday, and Comicazi does a great job with sanitation. They keep the doors open. They have, huge industrial size hand sanitizers right at the door, friendly people to greet you from a distance. But if you don't even really want to go inside, they also have a really cool table spread most days with toys. And that's something that we've been doing for my daughter is we'll do a stroller drive by, and she'll see something on the table, and we'll just be like, okay. Just try and support your local places in a responsible way. don't
Yeah.
linger anywhere too long, but go to places.
Wear your mask over your nose.
Yes. And in terms of work, yeah, my most recent published project is The Banks from TKO. And if you want to pick that up, you can do so straight through Comicazi, or most probably your local comic shop. You can ask them to order it for you. And I think that would be great. You should
Yeah.
read comics.
Retweet.